Greetings and salutations. I am Twilight Sparkle. I guess it's a little silly introducing myself when you already know who I am, but I think it sets the tone for things to come. Plus, I'm sure you'd appreciate the consistency in your records. Lots happened since we last spoke. I'm sure you've all heard how we defeated Discord and once again saved the world. What those stories won't mention is how long it's taken for the ponies of Ponyville and Canterlot to recover psychologically from the trauma he inflicted, at least to the point where they can live their lives with minimal disruption. Yes, I know you've all heard this before. I won't retread too much tired ground. I'll admit, I've done my own fair share of reflecting on that day. I did feel pretty guilty for assuming the elements were in the hedge maze and nearly doing Equestria for it, but upon further reflection, there really wasn't a right path. If I'd gone to the library first, he would have just scolded us for not bothering with the hedge maze, or said they were in the Everfree or something. Discord's a cheater. I think his brute forcing Fluttershy's corruption is proof of that. So no, I don't really blame myself. There's no point in blaming myself for losing an impossible game. In the end, the only reason Discord lost is because of his own hubris. He couldn't imagine us fixing our friendships. I mean, he was sort of right to. If it hadn't been for Princess Celestia sending me all those letters back, I would have left Ponyville, and all my friends would have stayed gray and grumpy. I really don't want to think about what could have happened after that. No, Applejack hasn't told me much about the latter half of the visions she had when she met the princess. From the look on her face when she mentioned them, I'm glad she didn't. After AJ rounded out her day of do-gooding by telling me about a mayor in Hingtington who needed my help, I have to say I was pretty surprised. When she told me exactly who it was, I was even more surprised. Of course I asked how she knew, but she just said she'd learned about it during her meeting with Princess Celestia. I still find it odd that Princess Celestia would request an audience with Applejack and her sister of all ponies, but none of the rest of us. But, well, it's AJ. I've got no reason not to trust her. Now, at the time, I was more distracted by the pony who Discord had seemingly taken a personal interest in, save as the rest of us, and who had therefore not been cured when Discord was defeated. I keep wondering, why her? I mean, yes, this is Discord we're talking about. But as insane as he acted, he was fully capable of tactical maneuvers, as evidenced by his manipulations of my friends. And from what I could tell, he had corrupted her around the same time he was tormenting us. It made no sense. More than Discord's usual, I mean. There was a method to his madness, I'm sure of it, so why her? Maybe he knew about my encounter with her somehow, and was planning on using her as a plan B in case his first plan didn't work. I don't think insane chaos gods are meant to be understandable. You have no idea how much I wanted to leave the moment Applejack told me, but I had responsibilities here as one of the few largely untraumatized ponies left. A few gossamer wing spells for some hospitalized Pegasi, making sure Pinkie didn't party herself or anyone else to death, and filling in for various organizational duties while the ponies normally in charge took the time to heal. So now, a little over a week and one unconscious Pinkie Pie later, it's finally time. I've already delayed more than I'd like. Rainbow Dash really wanted to tell me something before I left, but from the look on her face, I knew it was something that'd have to wait until I could give her my full attention. I feel bad for making her wait, but my friends were barely under Discord's spell for a few hours and they're still recovering. Someone who's been cursed like that for almost a month? I don't know if it's compassion or egocentrism or something else, but something inside me is screaming that I have to help her. I know what the others think of her, and they aren't exactly wrong, but there's just something so familiar in that egotistical, loudmouthed drama queen. I can't just brush her off as being beyond salvation. I'd like to think I'd do the same for any pony Discord hurt. So Rainbow Dash shook her head sadly and flew off. Sorry, Rainbow. If only there were some way of cloning myself. I turned to Rarity. I don't know how long I'm going to be gone. Mare seems to have settled down for the most part, but just in case, I'm leaving all my notes and plans with you. I passed over my best saddlebag, filled to the brim with scrolls and notebooks. What? Rarity's jaw dropped. I have no idea how long this is going to take. Could be hours, could be days. If anything major happens, I need the most well-organized pony I know aside from myself. Spike's staying here, and you know he'll be more than willing to help you with anything you need. Now, there's a couple spell scrolls here intended to be usable by any adult unicorn. You shouldn't have to worry about Sweetie Belle getting her hooves on them. Still try to make sure she didn't tear them, though. They took a while to make, and I'd rather not have to waste time making replacements. They're mostly just a few spells I've been asked to maintain, but I should be back for Twilight! Rarity finally snapped. How can you just drop this on me? At the very least, I'd appreciate some details on this mission of yours. I told you, I'm just going to try and help some pony Discord hurt as badly as us. Please, Rarity, you're my only hope. And you expect me to just hold on to your things while you're gone and fill your duties out of the goodness of my heart? I gave her my best puppy eyes. Her glare intensified. Look, I don't expect you'll actually have to do much. I don't actually think I'll be gone for more than a few days tops. But just in case I am, I need to know someone here is looking after things for me. If anything unexpected comes up, just have Spike Dragon mail me. Rarity groaned. Oh, fine. But I'll have you know you aren't the only one who's been taking on extra responsibilities right now. Thank you! I promise I'll be back as soon as I can! We gave our goodbye hugs and I raced home to pack what I needed. This would be a lot easier if only I could teleport there. but the amount of bursts it would take would leave me dead on my hose before I even got halfway, and that's not even counting the increased mana cost for my luggage. I really should have spent more time preparing for the trip ahead of time, but I've been so swamped I barely had time to ask the princess to send word I was going at all. Overworked? Who, me? Ha 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 ha. At least Princess Celestia was kind enough to provide her fastest Pegasus chariot so I could get there in record speed. The public train system was useful, but it would have taken the better part of the day just to get to the city. This way, I should be knocking on their door within the hour. I was planning on taking the train back once my job was done, though, largely in case whatever magic I'd be needing to perform tired me out. "Are you secure, Lady Sparkle?" one of the stallions asked me in the no-sense tone I was used to once I'd strapped in. There were some leather seatbelts here I didn't remember being in the last few chariots I took, but I wasn't complaining. "Yep." "Are you sure?" asked the second one. If I was a paranoid pony, I'd think they were kidnapping me. "Absolutely." "Then I would advise you to hold on tight." Hold on to what? There wasn't anything for me to grab! Don't get me wrong, I'm no stranger to chariot rides. They're pretty commonplace among the Canterlot elite, but those are usually flown by guards ponies who treat their passengers like the precious cargo they are, not Wonderbolt wannabes determined to break the sound barrier or give me a heart attack trying! I had to duck under the seat just to stop my skin from trying to fly off. Couldn't they at least have installed a windshield on this thing? It took me a good few minutes to get over my initial terror, but I spent the rest of the ride curled around the seatbelt for dear life, not even sparing a glance at the surely gorgeous scenery passing below me like I usually do. I didn't really lift my head up until I realized we were slowing down to make a landing, roughly 46 minutes after takeoff. Well, I'd wanted fast. At least I'd have the good sense not to try and bring a book with me to read on the way, like I usually do. After I dismounted and shook off the vertigo, I had to do a double take at the side of the small, moonlit hamlet overshadowed by an impressive mountainside castle. But no, that wasn't Canterlot up there, and this wasn't Ponyville. Huffington just looked very, very similar. From my unfortunately brief research, Huffington had been founded by Earth ponies just like Ponyville, but unicorn settlers had long since supplanted the original population, enough so the town boasted a fairly impressive magic school despite its rurality. It was a little strange seeing so many unicorns among distinctly Earth pony architecture. The chariot puller stopped to confirm that this is where I was meant to be, and that I wouldn't fall flat on my face after that doozy of a ride, then raced off back to Canterlot, leaving Princess Celestia's personal apprentice alone in the middle of a backward town. Again. At least last time I had Spike with me. Thankfully, Huffington was like Ponyville in another way. The locals were overwhelmingly welcome and friendly, and thankfully still somewhat active in the dead of night. Thankfully, this time I wasn't assaulted by a congolone of ponies destined to befriend me, all perfectly matching the personality profiles needed to awaken the elements of harmony. I'll admit, I'd wondered before if Princess Celestia hadn't pulled some strings to make sure my friends would be in Ponyville when I got there myself. It certainly wouldn't be beyond her abilities to go over the psychological profile of every pony in Equestria, just to ensure the 5 ponies she needed will be primed and waiting. Applejack's family were the ones who founded the town, and Verity's been here her entire life. But both Fluttershy and later Rainbow Dash had moved from Cloudsdale, and Pinkie Pie's only been living there the past decade. I don't know if I should feel awed at the level of planning, or manipulated, but I know the princess has never had anything but Equestria and its ponies' best interests in heart. Even if I'm right, I guess I should just be impressed at what 1,000 years of preparation could... 1,000 years? How long had she been planning this? Did she choose me to be her student just because I'd be her best bet at curing Nightmare Moon? I must have to dead my tracks at the thought, mind swarming with thoughts of fate and free will. Celestia, I really wish Spike was here to snark me out of it. In a flash of paranoia, I wondered if she'd bred bloodlines for the express purpose of creating ponies who could perfectly align with the elements. But no, she wouldn't. The Princess Celestia I knew could never be so cold and detached, even for the sake of all Equestria. I took a deep breath, and let Princess Luna's cold night air fill my lungs. This was absurd. I had to focus before I drove myself into a paranoia-fueled rampage. The princess may play her games, but I knew she truly loved me and her ponies, and that was enough. Following the directions from a very kind stranger, I arrived at a perfectly mundane house. It wasn't run down by any stretch of the imagination, nor was it the sort of sparkling clean eye-catcher you'd see in the outskirts of Canterlot. It was just normal, the kind of house you'd never think twice about. I felt bad for showing up at this late hour, but I figured I'd made them wait long enough, and I really didn't want to go to the trouble of finding a hotel this late. I bit the arrow and knocked on the door. I stood there for a good minute, cursing myself for bothering them this late at night, and wondering if I should just try again when they're more likely to be awake, when I saw a soft pink glow through the window. The door cracked open, pulling the silver lock chains taut. A strangely familiar, unsurprisingly groggy voice asked, "Who is it?" I stumbled over what I'd been planning to say. "I was told I'm from Ponyville. I was sent to look at someone cursed by Discord. I'm very, very, very sorry for taking so long. I sincerely apologize, and I can understand if you hate me, but please, at least let me try. I really want to help her, I really do, but there were just so many in Ponyville who needed help too, and are you Twilight Sparkle?" The mayor on the other side interrupted. "Right, introductions. Yes, I am. Is Trixie here?" The door closed for a second, then I heard the click of locks being undone before it swung open again, revealing an azure unicorn with a silver mane and kind violet eyes. "Trixie?" I gasped. The The unicorn shook her head, a faintly amused but apologetic smile on her face, then turned to show me the fairy-winged book on her flank. Oh no, I'm Nixie. I'm her sister. I recovered slightly. I didn't know Trixie had a twin. Oh, none of us are twins. Us sisters just wound up looking a lot more similar than most siblings do. Our brothers Puck and Robin don't look nearly as much like us. Who is us, exactly? Well, Nixie theatrically tilted her head in thought. You're here and we're all here anyway, so I guess now's as good a time for introductions as any. I didn't get a chance to question her logic before Nixie floated over a copper pot and ladle from the kitchen and started banging them together. Wake up, everyone! The doctor from Canterlot is finally here! Front and center, girls, let's do this! Throughout the house, I could hear the ruckus of ponies jumping or falling out of bed, assaulting my poor ears with a cacophony I couldn't pick apart even if I wanted to. Before the noise of the makeshift gong even had a chance to stop ringing in my ears, I was left staring in astonishment. 3 other mares galloped into the room, somehow managing to cartwheel or somersault their way through the kitchen, even while obviously trying to blink the sleep out of their eyes. One by one, they all lined up alongside Nixie. I couldn't take my eyes off them. I was in a room with 4 Trixies. Sound off! Declared Nixie, holding her hooves up like Pinkie had at the climax of her evil enchantress song. The others assumed equally ridiculous Pony Rangers-esque poses. On closer look, I could tell at least some were older than others. It was still so weird. Presenting Pixie the eldest! Her cutie mark was a silvery pan flute. Mixie the second eldest! A witch silhouetted by a pale moon. Nixie the second youngest! The fairy tale book again. And Lexi the youngest! A theater mask split down the middle between comedy and tragedy. In attendance! Shouted Nixie, as if to an audience of more than one. Then in chorus, the Midsummer Night's Sisters! Somehow it was the lack of fireworks that convinced me this wasn't a dream. The group held their poses for a heartbeat before dropping back to all fours and grumbling lightly. I still think the name is corny, said Pixie, stretching her forelegs sleepily. The name is fine, huffed Lexi. It's just the poses that are corny. Watching 4 Trixies casually chat amongst themselves was absolutely going on my list of weirdest things I've ever experienced, right below Pinkie's 6th entry. So, you're Dr. Sparkle? Asked Mixie, trotting up to me. I finally realized I'd just been standing in the front door and hesitantly trotted in. It's just Twilight Sparkle, actually. I'm not actually a doctor. Between blinks, Pixie was in my face. Then why are you here looking for Trixie? Nixie just said you were the doctor from Canterlot. For some reason, I was sweating. I am from Canterlot, and I am here to help Trixie. A regular doctor can't cure what she has. I think I'm one of the only ones who can. Claire did not abate. I promise I know what I'm doing. I've done this several times before without trouble. I'm sure I'll have your, sister back to normal in no time. Pixie continued to stare at me, even as Mixie levitated her away. I don't know, I'm starting to like her the way she is, Lexi mused, sitting on her haunches. She doesn't try to get out of family activities anymore, she's a great listener now, and Lexi! Shouted the 3 together, like a reflex. Lexi's ears pinned. Only joking, she defended meekly. Mixie shook her head, then turned to me. Seriously, you can't cure her, right? She pleaded, her purple eyes wide and so unlike Trixie's. I'm absolutely sure I can, I said with confidence that was only slightly false. But I, didn't get many details. What's she been doing? She's like a doll, Mixie said flatly. My overtired brain chugged for a moment. She likes dressing up in tea parties? No, Mixie said, just a bit harsh. I mean, she doesn't do anything. She hasn't said a word in weeks. We have to take turns making sure she feeds herself. And when we can get her to respond to anything, she just goes through the motions like a robot. At least she can still go to the bathroom by herself. Talking to her is like talking to a rock in the shape of my little sister. My brain whirred trying to process all this information. I responded to the simplest thing first. Little sister? Trixie's in the middle, Pixie offered helpfully. That bit of information was easily filed away. I think I was beginning to put the pieces of a puzzle together, but I wasn't sure yet what the picture would be. I could tell the exhaustion was getting to me when the next thing out of my mouth was a wildly unintelligent, "You all sure look alike." Thanks, Pixie giggled lightly. When we get outside, we actually like to hide our cutie marks. It's Lexi's idea of a joke. The other ponies in town have turned it into a game where they try to guess who's who. Trixie never really liked playing along, though. Unless I blackmailed her, shrugged Lexi. Or I guilt-tripped her, added Mixie. Or I bribed her, admitted Pixie. Or I just asked really, really nicely, Mixie said, giving her sisters an unreadable look. The point is, she was never really a team player, Mixie sighed. I'd still rather have her than... She waved her hoof vaguely, face twisted in discomfort. Right, I'll get on as soon as A yawn tore its way through my throat. Jeez, my exhaustion was really catching up to me. Mixie smiled and shook her head. Maybe you should get some sleep first. Trixie won't be any worse after a nap. No, I'm fine. And my eyelids turned to lead. Seriously, Mixie said in a forcefully polite tone. We'd rather have you perform the spell or whatever when you're awake and won't accidentally turn my little sister into a potted plant. Oh, don't be silly, I laughed, watching the room sway a little. The only ponies I've ever turned into potted plants were my parents, and they totally went back to normal afterwards. I think the princess picking me as their chosen one right after offset any chance of them developing a pathological fear of their own child, which is really cool because even though I think of her momjessly like a mom, I also really like my mom, and I know I don't talk to her all that often, but right, said Trixie with a witch bikini mark. So you're asleep on your hose now, got it. Lexi, go grab a blanket from the closet. Trixie with mask cutie mark shrugged and trotted off, while Trixie with book cutie mark led me to a nice comfy couch. I didn't let them distract me. I mean, can you believe some Earth ponies? I know their magic isn't as visible as ours or even Peg's side, but just because we don't use our hooves for everything doesn't mean that magic isn't every bit as hard to maintain a field, dang it! You know what I mean? I asked the four nice Trixies, not really talking to anyone in particular. I don't even remember where that thought came from. Probably the same place as all those Trixies. Right, hummed Trixie with a book cue mark in a strangely Fluttershy tone as I was flopped onto the warm, comfy couch. Maybe I should just rest my eyes a bit. I mean, I've only had to organize the appointment schedules for nearly everyone in Ponyville, cast the wing spell a few more times, attend the last day of Pinky's party binge, help my friends get her sleep, hack the last of my things, travel across the sky, find the house. Comfy blanket. I don't know why, but my dreams that night felt incomplete somehow. Like they were just words floating in a black, misty sea of confusion. Scented, uninspired, and willing to sort themselves into any sort of meaning. And I was lost swimming in the middle of it all. Was I so tired I couldn't even dream properly? Maybe Pinkie Pie wasn't the only one who needed to be forced to bed. Maybe it was just the confusion of being surrounded by Trixie lookalikes, but the one coherent dream I had was of a fillyhood memory, listening to one of Princess Celestia's one-on-one lectures. Except I wasn't the only filly there this time. Trixie was sitting next to me, with a color-swapped version of my cutie mark on her flank. I know dreams are supposed to be a reflection of the subconscious, but if this one had any meaning, it was lost on me. When I woke up the next morning feeling like I had slept a week, the sun was already high in the sky. The youngest of Trixie's sisters was keeping me company on the opposite couch. What was her name again? Flexi? Bexley? Ugh, who invented specialized words for individual names anyway? Most ponies were perfectly happy with regular old nouns and adjectives, thank you very much. Celestia? Her name is derived from celestial, or rather, the modern word is based off her name. And Luna was the old ponish word for moon. And anyway, it's not like any pony was gonna risk blaspheming by naming their foals after the sun goddess. Anyway, in the morning, I groaned, shaking off thoughts of equestrian nomenclature. You're, Lexley? Lexi, she corrected. I'm surprised you remembered that much, given you were practically asleep in your hose when you got here. Oh, I'm so sorry. Normally I absorb details like a sponge. I really didn't think I was that tired last night. Lexi smirked a little. Did you know you spout magical formulas in your sleep? I opened my mouth, then closed it. That did explain some of the weird dreams. I shook my head and got up, making sure to fold the blanket nicely. Thank you for letting me sleep here, by the way. It was very kind of you, considering how long I've left your sister waiting. Don't thank me. I was gonna wake you up by popping balloons in your ear. And I think Pixie was planning on waking you up with her favorite heavy metal bands. But Nixie and Mixie convinced us to let you sleep in. I grinned despite myself. Remind me never to let these mares meet Rainbow and Pinkie. Well, I'll be sure to thank them then. Oh, Nixie's in the kitchen if you want to. It's about time to feed Trixie anyway. She made it sound like Trixie was a pet. I opened my mouth to comment on it, but her body language. This wasn't callousness. It was numbness. Actually, I should probably go fetch her about now. Be back in a sec. She didn't wait for an answer, trotting out of the living area and leaving me to get my bearings. Now that it was actually light out, I saw that the house had clearly been built with earth pony needs in mind, then later modified for long-term unicorn habitation. Many things were placed where only telekinesis could reach them. It wasn't that shocking, really. Families move in and out of houses all the time, and different ponies have different needs, even within races. Trixie, time to come out! Came Lexi's shout. I turned my head and peeked down the hallway she'd gone down to see her waiting in front of a doorway for a second, tapping her hoof as if to count seconds before pushing it open herself. Curious, I followed her down the hall and peered inside the room. It was a cramped bedroom, one with 3 bunk beds and a single. I didn't really take in any other details, though, as my eyes were immediately drawn to the unicorn Lexi was pulling out of the single. Of all the unicorns I'd seen in the house so far, this one looked and acted the least like Trixie, and not just because she didn't have the cape and hat. The blanket shifting to reveal Trixie's magic wand cutie mark didn't leave much room for doubt, even if it was as lifelessly grey as the rest of her. The mare was constantly looking down, avoiding eye contact with every pony, her expression a broken, unwavering melancholy. And the way she moved. I remembered a mechanical doll one of my classmates in Canterlot had designed. It had been a marvel at the time for how it moved without being alive, even with its halting movements and stiff limbs, and its cold, lifeless expression. but that doll had been made of tin, and I could easily see the key in the gears between its joints. Here, all I saw was coat and hide, the even rise and fall of her flanks, and those exact same lifeless movements. I swallowed my gasp and fled. There's no way Lexi didn't hear me, but she didn't comment, just silently leading Trixie into the living room. Trixie didn't even spare me a glance. Come on, Trix, Nixie's waiting for us, Lexi said gently, prodding along her gray and broken sister. I struggled a little with guessing the best distance to follow at, not wanting to crowd Trixie, but also not wanting to seem like I was avoiding her. I followed them into a smallish kitchen area where Nixie had already set the table for 4, and was now at the sink drying a pan. Good morning, Trixie, she said happily, trotting up to her big sister. How are you this morning? No response. Well, I'm sure you'll feel better after you have something in your stomach, Nixie said with an undeterred smile. Breakfast was pretty generic, just a round of scrambled eggs. It wasn't bad. Trixie didn't bother with telekinesis, unsurprisingly, just diving in face first like any other pony. Neither of her sisters reacted to her lack of unicorn table manners. I'd be told later they'd tried exactly once to feed her manually, and her jaw had closed like a steel trap until they stopped. Lexi admitted to having tried to cover her nose to force her to breathe. I figured from her expression that it hadn't ended well. Trixie, this is Twilight Sparkle. She's the expert we told you about who's here to help you. Twilight Sparkle, this is my big sister Trixie. Trixie's eyes flickered in my direction for the barest hint of an instant. Her mouth twitched as if to mouth my name, but her jaw refused to open. Nice to meet you, Trixie, I said in my best attempt at politeness. I ate in silence, watching Nixie try desperately to coax some reaction out of her sister. I didn't want to watch, but I couldn't pull my eyes away either. It was like looking at some grotesque puppet show, a pony's body pulled along by invisible strings. So, you came from Canterlot? Lexi said, looking me up and down as if trying to find some sign of typical upper-crust snobbery. Technically, I came from Ponyville, but I spent most of my life in Canterlot. I've been in Ponyville for the past year for, personal studies. Forgive me for not wanting to admit I was studying friendship. Oh, I see. No need to say any more, Nixie said with a wink. I have no clue what she thought I meant, and I'm not sure I want to find out. Where are your other sisters? I had to ask. Lexi shrugged. Trixie had a rehearsal today, if you can call it that, and Missy's out earning her keep. Well, that wasn't big at all. Trixie didn't react to a word that was spoken, just mindlessly chewing on her eggs as if she wasn't sitting right in front of the mayor who'd both saved her life and shattered her carefully crafted illusion of being the greatest mage and showmare in all Equestria. With a full belly, I finally decided to stop delaying. I got out of my seat, drawing Lexi and Nixie's eyes to me instantly. Trixie, stand here, please, I said, as forcefully as I could muster. Trixie complied with all the obedience of an automaton. Stay still, I said, perhaps redundantly. Her muscles locked in place. I glanced at her sisters, seeing the barely concealed hope in their eyes, and lit my horn. Memory spell conforms itself to the recipient, forcing them to relive the memories that mattered most to them, and those that helped shape them into who they are. Or at least that's the summarized explanation. We'd be here all week if I gave the full, scientifically accurate rundown. If you want my perspective, though, it's more like an intense light and a strong wind, piercing the darkness and dispelling the dark clouds swallowing a discordant heart. It had woken Applejack from her refusal to face reality. It had pulled Pinkie Pie up from the emotional pit Discord had tricked her into digging for herself. It had helped remind Rarity of what was truly precious to her. It had made Fluttershy remember why she loved to care for others, though, I admit, there was a strange pushback when I'd cast the spell on her, but it worked just fine in the end, so I didn't really question it. And it helped Rainbow Dash to remember that her friends mattered to her. Now, I lowered my horn to Trixie's to maximize magical conduction, and prayed that the spell would restore the ego that had been stolen from her. Get out! A thunderous roar erupted from the blackness, snapping the connection shut with enough force to knock me backward. I instinctively felt my horn to make sure it was still in one piece. It was, thanks to Celestia. Whatever that was, it wasn't Trixie, I hope. Naturally, Trixie's sisters rushed to her side before mine. She was shuddering a little, but otherwise unchanged, still that dull gray. What happened? Is she okay? Nixie asked. I shook away the dizziness. I tried to use the memory spell to cure her, but something came between us. Or more like I was being pushed out. Nixie helped me to my hooves. Trixie, Lexi's voice broke. Come on, this isn't funny. Don't you want to be better? You do, right? Yeah, I know you do, so just let the nightmare help you, please? No response. Fine, see if I care, Lexi snarled, audibly choking back a sob. She left the room at a gallop. Nixie looked like she wanted so badly to say something, anything, but she couldn't find the words. Eventually, she just sighed and turned to me. Are you hurt? Or Trixie? I'm fine. Trixie's no worse than she was a minute ago. I see. I looked at Trixie. This had not been the plan at all. I'd hoped to be back in Ponyville by the end of the day. Ready was just in case the worst happened. I'd figured that if anything went wrong, it would be something preventing me from casting the spell, or my needing to stay a few days to help her recover emotionally from the trauma of a weeks-long discording. Not that Trixie would have done anything but complain. I had little to no say in what memories get shown during the spell, finds the ones that best suit the spell's request all on their own. There was no chance in hell whatever was in Trixie's mind wasn't just waiting for me to make another attempt. I needed a new spell. Sure, the academy was nearby, but I needed my own materials if I wanted this done anytime soon, and the Canterlot library was better than any save my own collection. Things had just gotten much, much more complicated. I knew what the smart, arguably correct decision would be. Just hand Trixie over to the experts, those with more experience in psychological magics. Someone who knew how a pony's head worked, rather than one who had only just started learning a year ago. It was the smart thing to do, the practical thing, the Twilight Sparkle thing. And yet... How soon until all your sisters are home again? I asked. Late afternoon, probably. I'll wait until then. I think my best chance at helping Trixie would be to take her back with me to Ponyville and research her condition there. You really think you'll be able to help her? Nixie asked, her eyes on her sister. I'm absolutely certain. Alright then. Nixie nodded as if that settled everything. And with that, I had officially told my biggest, fattest lie since the Parasprite infestation, and made the most selfish, self-serving, self-centered, self-absorbed, self-important decision of my entire life. And I couldn't even tell you why. I spent the rest of the day asking Nixie questions about Trixie. Sadly, with my experience with other ponies lacking as much as it does, I wasn't really sure what questions to ask, which is just about the worst problem to have when you're trying to understand something, or some pony in this case. Thankfully, Nixie gave me just enough anecdotes to work with to form a few conclusions outside of raw dates and statistics. Nixie had requested that Trixie make herself comfortable in the living room, which meant our talk was accompanied by the grey mare laying in a chair and staring at nothing like she was a Phileas abandoned doll. Oh, Mom and Dad loved us all, and we did our best to support each other as well. She always seemed frustrated over something or other. I'll admit, sometimes it was kind of hard to tell what she was thinking. I swear to Celestia, I've never seen Trixie look as happy as when Dad said we had the bits for her to attend a Crystal Arcanus. The only time she didn't look ecstatic over it was when Mixie said she'd fit right in. Oh, she never did badly in any of them, but Mom said she was upset she wasn't doing fantastic in any of them either. I don't think we realized how much she was hurting until she ran away to join the circus. Mixie tried telling her we were 5 parts of a whole, and we should support each other. Trixie told her that was the problem and locked herself in the closet for a day. At some point, she just seemed to give up on her classes. Her teachers were all sad to see her go. She ended up giving her scholarship to Mixie, and became Whitebeard the Grey's apprentice. Of course we were all happy when Trixie got her cutie mark. I couldn't remember when I last saw her so happy. It was the first time in so long she wasn't snapping at every pony. She spent her entire quinceanera showing off with illusions and fancy light shows. Heck, she even convinced Pixie she was a baby dragon. She just left town one day. I came home from class to find her packing a bag. She gave me a quick hug and asked me to tell Mom, and then she was gone. I still don't really know why. It's not like her act was growing stale or anything. She does visit sometimes, usually around the summer sun and hearthwarming, unless she thinks she can make it big in one of the larger cities that year. And she stops by for birthdays sometimes if she's in the area. The last time she visited out of season was for Master Whitebeard's funeral. She didn't really speak to us. I only know she was there because I spotted her running off when they brought out his casket. The 4 of us were actually in Ponyville around 9 months ago. We'd heard Trixie was going to do one of her shows there, but we missed it entirely. Pixie wasn't happy. Oh, hey, you were in Ponyville around that time, right? Did you get to see it? I did my best not to grin awkwardly. I only really caught the end of it. My friends didn't talk about it much, but they were really, emotionally charged about it afterwards. She left in the middle of the night that evening, so I didn't have a chance to catch a full performance. Somehow, this twisted version of the truth tasted more bitter than my bald-faced lie from earlier. Aw, too bad. Trixie really knows how to put on a show. She's a great storyteller when she isn't trying too hard to be flashy about it. I smiled absently. I would absolutely not be telling Nixie that her sister had lied her flank off about defending her hometown from an Ursa Major and spread the story from town to town in an attempt to make herself look better. Nixie continued to answer every one of my questions, and it didn't stop her when she veered off in different directions that somehow gave me more to work with than what I'd been asking for. I've always thought we should join up as one big theater group, but the others never agreed. Trixie insists she works best alone, Pixie doesn't want to be tied down, and Pixie's scared it'll seal off other chances for her. We've never performed together even once. There was this one time Mixie suggested Trixie should teach Pixie and Lexi some of her tricks to spice up their performances. She left without telling anyone that time. I didn't even know she was in town this time. I was shocked when I found her. I was happy for a second before I realized something was wrong. I thought she was hurt at first, or sick or something. And that Discord appeared and, well, I nodded. I knew better than to ask her to open up to a stranger about the trauma of Discord's games. Nixie's sisters came home around then, and with them came 2 others. One was a middle-aged black unicorn mare with wrinkles and a naturally solar mane, who introduced herself as Morgana Fay. The other was an earth stallion with a very similar color scheme to his daughters, named Guiamar. Nixie explained these were her parents. I was surprised, but not very. The idea that mixed-race couples created magically inferior unicorns had been disproved for ages, along with the rest of that purity nonsense. All of Trixie's family took the time to hug her goodbye, even if she didn't seem to register any of it. Guiomar and Morgana took a second to stare me down and ask me if I was certain I could help their child. Somehow, I didn't waver under their gaze. Lexi was last, having to be pushed to bid her sister farewell. She went through the motions, but insisted that there wasn't much of a point if Trixie couldn't even tell. Thank goodness Trixie didn't have the will to ignore my orders, otherwise it would have made getting her on the train a lot harder. I slept for most of the 10-hour journey, waking up just in time for our 4 a.m. arrival. It was early enough that not a lot of the town would be up and about, thankfully. I'd rather no pony see me walking with a pony whose bragging nearly got the town destroyed by a pair of idiot fools wanting to see a show. We got to the library without incident, and a mostly awake Spike trotted downstairs to greet me. "Twilight, you're back! I'm so—" He spotted Trixie. "What the hey is she doing here?" "I missed you too, Spike," I said softly. Whatever elation he must have felt at my return was clearly dampened at the sight of the braggart who'd earned the ire of the entire town. But he was a smart little dragon. "Was she the one you had to run out to help?" "Yep, she's been like this for weeks now." Spike squinted at her disbelievingly. "Why would Discord give her special attention?" Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Trixie's head lower a fraction of an inch. "I don't know, Spike, but she needs my help. I know you don't like her, but she's going to have to stay with us for a while until I can figure out how to help her. Can't you just use the memory spell on her?" "I tried that already. It didn't work." "And you're sure she's not just faking it?" I leveled him with my best mom glare. He held his hands up in surrender and went back upstairs, mumbling about setting up the couch for her. Guess I should be thankful he's so used to aiding my every whim. So for the next few days, Spike and Aloysius helped tend to Trixie, who I gave my bed while I took the couch. Spike gave me an incredulous look for that one. Trixie was silent as a mouse, which would be a blessing if it wasn't coming from such an odd source. Something tells me Trixie and quiet don't normally go along together. I researched everything I could about the memory spell and its variants, what information the Canterlot Library had on Discord and his magic, and every bit of psychology material I could get my hooves on. There was no way in Tartarus I could keep Trixie a secret forever, and I had no intention of hiding her if some pony asked, but I wasn't volunteering the information either. My friends were all happy to see me back so soon, and happily reported that no disaster had occurred while I was away. I explained my patient was staying at my place for the time being. Pinkie Pie was still sleeping her party binge off, even days after the fact. We were beginning to get a little worried. On the bright side, Pinkie was the most likely to barge into the library and discover Trixie before I was ready, so I thought I had time. I might just be an idiot. I told my friends my patient was at my place. I repeat, I told my friends my patient was at my place. My friends, who barged through my carefully constructed walls approximately 5 hours into my arrival in Ponyville. My friends, who consisted of some of the kindest, most well-meaning, and most of all nosy ponies in all Equestria. Okay, it might not all be bad. Fluttershy had volunteered for most of the Pinkie watching shifts while the cakes were working, and between those and tending to her animals, she didn't have a lot of time left in the day. And last time I spoke to Rainbow Dash, she seemed super anxious about something, so she's probably got enough on her plate that my mysterious visitor isn't on our radar. This just leaves Rarity and Applejack, who had their own work and loved ones keeping them busy. For about 2 days. Naturally, they coordinated their visit and showed up at the same time, unannounced. Why wouldn't they be? We had an unspoken doors policy, as true as a pinky swear. Believe it or not, I didn't panic, and I didn't try to hide Trixie either. Experience has taught me the futility in such childish attempts. I simply led them up to my room and opened the door, letting the cards fall where they may. Rarity gasped. Applejack just looked sad. And oh my Celestia, I've been an idiot. Applejack was the one who told me about Trixie in the first place. Of course she knew already. Did the backlash from that spell manage to knock something loose in my brain or something? My word, Rarity finally managed. I steeled myself for the questions on how I could drop everything to go help the tacky braggart who'd ruined her mane and nearly trampled the town, but instead she just took a few careful steps forward. Quietly. What happened to her? I'm beginning to think I don't know my friends as well as I think I do. She's the one Discord hurt, Applejack answered in my stead. And she's been like this since then? Yep. She turned to me in disbelief. Why on earth haven't you used the memory spell yet? I startled out of my shock. I tried the moment I got there. Something pushed me out. I don't know if it's something Discord left in her or what, but it's gonna take a while to figure out how to get around it. Oh, the poor dear, she whispered, ghosting a hoof over the unicorn, who I'm sure she must have hated just yesterday. I almost smacked myself in the face right then and there. Spike hadn't experienced Discord's curse, so of course he'd be skeptical. But Harry and my other friends, we know first hoof what it's like for Discord to dig his claws into your heart and twist it from the inside out with a few pretty words, unlike a lot of ponies who just had parts of their brains shut off or turned to overdrive with a snap of his claws. Rarity would never wish that on any pony. None of us would. And Applejack? She had none of Rarity's trained politeness, and she was too stubborn to let her injured pride heal anytime soon. Edgy had been just as humiliated by Trixie's challenge as Rarity and Rainbow Dash. True, she isn't one for petty revenge over something as silly as a bruised ego, and I know she was the one who told me in the first place, but the look in her eyes, there There was no trace of reluctant pity or sense of duty. She really did just care. Well, I can't say you don't look better without that horrid cape, dear, Verity said, snapping me out of my musings with her fussing. But really, this whole grey and lifeless look isn't you. Or any pony, for that matter. And good word, your mane! You didn't tell the others she was here, did you, Sugar Cube? Applejack asked me rhetorically. She marched up to Trixie and pulled up her chin, forcing her to look her in the eyes. Hey, great and powerful Trixie! How about a rematch, just you and me? My Earth Pony strength against your fancy magic. Come on, show me what you got! I was impressed. Trixie actually shuddered at that one. A gruesome thought came to me then, one I'd been trying desperately not to think about. Maybe, with all the weeks I had been delaying, all the time Trixie spent locked away like this, maybe she's just dead inside. Discord had killed her, and all I was looking at was an empty husk reacting to stimuli. I'd taken too long. I'd left her to die. I shook my head. No, she has to be alive. There was something inside her that didn't want me there, which meant there was something worth protecting. There had to be. Applejack looked disappointed by the reaction. She tried waving her hose around and even clapped her hose inches from her face, but still nothing. Verity, ever polite, pulled me to the side and murmured just low enough that Trixie wouldn't be able to hear us. Perhaps we could attempt a magic contest between the two of you? Find something magical for Trixie to beat you at? Nixie's words about Trixie's test scores came flashing back. I don't think that would work. Trixie isn't nearly aware enough of the world around her to be able to compete like that. I don't even know if she recognizes who I am. Well, drat. I snorted at the reaction and looked back towards Applejack to see her sitting on her haunches, staring Trixie in the eyes once more. And I was shocked to see that as she kept up her unwavering gaze, Trixie eventually began to shrink back from her, and were her eyes misting up? I'll take any reaction I can get at this point. Eventually it must have been too much, because Trixie actually turned her head to avoid her gaze. But Applejack didn't let her, darting a hoof up to keep her head in place until Trixie just closed her eyes, letting a few tears leak out, and let herself flop backward onto the bed. Applejack sighed and stood to look at me. Twyla, I don't know nothing about unicorn magic, and I know even less about that fancy-smashy psychology. But... My mind was racing. The only thing I could think of that could have caused such a reaction was something about Applejack's elements. If she had any further ideas, I'd welcome them eagerly. I think what's been thrown out is Trixie. A part of Trixie, anyway. A part of her that doesn't want to come out. Trixie that doesn't want Trixie to come out of the nice, comfortable darkness where she doesn't have to face the truth. Rarity balked. And how, pray tell, did you get all that just from looking at her? Applejack narrowed her eyes. 'Cause she was scared to death to look at me. Applejack, that really doesn't prove anything, I groaned. Why was I getting Pinky Sense flashbacks? Twyla, I saw inside her just now. I can't tell you how or why. I barely understand myself. But I swear on my great-grandpappy's grave that I could see or feel or whatever that Trixie's hiding herself away in her own mind. Discord's curse screwed her up bad. Verity gave her a flat look, as if to say, no kidding. Well, that complicates things. Even if I got past whatever barrier was keeping me out, there was a chance I wouldn't be able to find the memories I needed to make Trixie see past Discord's lies. Or Trixie herself, for that matter. Once again, I wondered if it wouldn't be better to just hoof Trixie off to the experts, let ponies who know how to deal with this sort of trauma help where I might not be able to. But there was something about this that nagged at me. Somehow, I couldn't help but feel like this was my responsibility. Like there was something about Trixie I was missing, and if I gave up on her now, that something would be lost forever. Maybe I'm just being stubborn, but I couldn't just give up on her now. I wonder if Celestia would approve of this, or if she'd scold me for reading that part of friendship meant knowing when to ask for help. Though it's not like I was doing this entirely on my own. Applejack may very well have given me the key I needed to get past the first door. Hey, Twilight! Spike interrupted my musings by rushing through the front door, nearly tripping over the groceries I'd asked him to pick up. You wouldn't believe— Oh, Rarity! Look, I'm sorry about Trixie, it wasn't my idea, but Twilight insisted— It's perfectly fine, Spike. Rarity waved off. So what's happened? Spike shook himself. Right, Pinkie Pie's finally awake! A wave of relief washed over us all. Thanks, Celestia, we had one less thing to worry about. One less friend spiraling towards danger, and one more friend to support us when we did the same. Spike, you look after Trixie, I ordered. Girls, you want to join me in a visit to Sugar Cube Corner? You have to ask, Sugar Cube, Applejack said, following me and Rarity down the stairs without hesitation. Naturally, Spike protested. Hey, wait, Pinkie's my friend too! You can't just— I promise I'll be back as soon as I can, I promised. Though whether to Spike or Trixie, I wasn't sure. Then I closed the door behind me, off to Sugar Cube Corner at last.